Yo, what is going on, guys? This is your boy Anvil here, and I'm back with the one, the only Sarah T. What's going on, Sarah?
It's Wednesday, my dudes.
And you
That's
guys,
that's about it.
you guys know what that means. It's Viability Ranking Wednesdays, all right?
Yeah, new thing.
Yeah. So this is probably gonna be a long one. We might split it up into parts, but we're gonna
Maybe three
go.
parts.
Yeah, we're gonna go in depth into what we think are the best mons to use in the tier, and I know a lot of the mons we've been using in our lives, they will be on this list, and we will give the reasoning for exactly why they are there and why they deserve to be there. So, without any further ado, let's get right into it. So, uh, before starting off real quick, we split up the rankings into S, and then we went into A plus, A minus, and then the rest for the other letters too. We went up to
So
C.
C minus.
Yeah.
Yes.
So starting off at S.
So it's the best of the best in the ORAS OU metagame.
So maybe we can make this a game real quick. So what do you guys think is S? And I'll give you guys a moment. And now let's show them off. So S tier. Were you guys expecting this? I'd assume so, because these things are most menacing mons in the tier. Um, Honestly, I'd put Clef a little bit over Drill, and I think Sarah agrees with me on that.
Yes.
Um,
Easily.
yeah, so we've seen Clef put in a lot of work during SPL. The Life Orb set is scary, and it can punish most of its switch-ins. Like stuff like Drill loves to switch into Clef, and then we saw that game it versus like Persephone versus a Raptor where the Drill got annihilated by Life Orb Clef's flamethrower. And on a similar note, knockoff Clef is annoying. Combine Clef is annoying. Encore Clef is annoying. D-Wave Clef is annoying. It can do so many different things, and it's really good at that. Um, and the reason we'd probably rank it a little bit above Drill, it also has better defensive utility. That fairy typing is nice, and it's also one of the few mons that can switch into Mega Medicham and Mega Lopunny. And it also has Magic Guard.
Yes.
So maybe Sarah can talk a little about our little mole friend here.
Yeah. So Extra like Clef, is a very splashable Pokemon. You can put it on pretty much any team, and it'll do a good job. There are very few. Just like Clef, there are very few Pokemon that can do what Extra does. And for Extra Drill, that's rapid spinning. So it's, I think, inarguably the best rapid spinner in the tier. It's the bulkiest one. It doesn't have to worry about like pursuit trapping as much as Starmie, for instance. Its speed isn't quite as good as Starmie or a Tentacruel, if you want to go that low. But it's still really good. It has the Sand Rush ability. It has Mold Breaker, right? The typing, which has very little. You power resist rock. I'm saying. So
Mhm.
it's one of the few ones that can get more recovery coming in on rocks, stealth rocks, than any other Pokemon. Most other Pokemon, or the vast majority of Pokemon. So most Pokemon take what, 12.25? Is that what it is? 12.5,
Yep.
something like that.
Mhm.
This thing takes like 3 point something. So minuscule. And then you give this thing leftovers, and it makes up 3% of it. And over time, you keep switching in and out. You're just coming in to spin and leave. You'll be back up to full if you took some damage. So, yeah, its offensive profile is really good. Like stealing ground, really solid. Give it rock slide or whatever, and it's not perfect coverage, but they're pretty damn close. Yeah. So even though Emil and I both rank Clef to be higher, because there really is no substitute for Clef.
Mhm.
Like defensively, it's like the bulkiest fairy type in the tier. It's like one of the few fairy types in the tier that's actually like also physically defensive. Can set it in sweep, or a linking clean. It just has so many sets. So both these ones are S tier pretty much because they both do so many things. You're able to compress a lot of rolls in them, They have a lot of utility, good offense, good typing, and most teams are improved when you add one of these mons to them. So that's why they're S tier.
Yeah. And then coming down to A plus tier. So I'll give you guys another moment. Feel free to guess what you think is going to be in here. And without further ado, let's get into A plus. So we have Ferrothorn, Rotom Wash, Serp, Slowbro, Torn, and Zapdos. So Sarah and I can probably take turns doing these. So for Ferrothorn, Ferrothorn is one of the best spike shedders in the tier. It also has decent utility in knockoff and thunder wave. And probably the most notable thing about Ferrothorn is that defensive typing, because it only has two weaknesses in fighting and fire, which can easily be remedied with other teammates like Slowbro, for example. And it's also one of the few notable Pokemon that can deal with stuff like Manaphy. And the nice thing about Ferrothorn is that you have many options for passive damage versus your opponent. You have Leech Seed, you have Iron Barbs, um, and you have Spikes and Stealth Rocks, of course. So those are really nice. And the fact that it's a defensive wall with the option to hit very hard due to its high base power moves in Gyro Ball and Power Whip make it a force to be reckoned with, both defensively and offensively as well. As Sarah and I have mentioned a lot recently that most people don't really prepare for offensive grass types. So they really like most of the tier doesn't like switching into base 120 power whip, and stuff like drill can become like severely chipped or outright decimated by switching into that. And yeah, that's one of the reasons why Ferrothorn is one of the best spikers in the tier.
Yeah, it's also a pretty good just like a generic like defensive check to a lot of things. You know, if you need something to live a hit, you got a Ferrothorn. Also, it's like fire. Right? Sometimes even if it is fire, it'll live and paralyze the Pokemon with like a T-Wave, or if it's chipped, maybe finish it off with a Power Whip or something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Ferrothorn's pretty great. Anyway, Rotom Wash. So probably one of my votes for like most annoying Pokemon in the tier. So this thing's got Volt Switch, and unlike most electric types, it has a secondary stab which punishes ground types, which is a bane of electric types' existence. So it's got Hydro Pump, but it also has its choice of status. It gets Will-O-Wisp, which is very valuable in ORAS. A very common, very good status move. It gets T-Wave, even better status move. And if you're, like I said, if you're Scum, it even has Toxic for you.
Oh, yes.
And besides that, besides having Volt Switch and punishing things with Hydro Pump and Will-O-Wisp, it's got great, base defenses. HP is kind of, no, it's not kind of, it is pretty mediocre, even below average, I'd say. But natural, bulk, and the defense and special defense are really good. Has Pain Split, so it doesn't have Recover, but Pain Split can really, help out in a pinch. Or sometimes, in rare occasions, it could be even better than having Recover, because you're also taking health from the opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And lately we've been seeing Choice Scarf sets with Trick. So, you give it a nice speed boost. So it's good speed control with the aforementioned status moves, while also having Trick to cripple either setup mons, like maybe like a Clef, or really inhibit something like Clefable. I mean, sorry, not Clefable, I meant to say Chansey or Slowbro, which is also on feature tier. We'll get to that later. So yeah, really annoying, very flexible, and one of the best pivots in the tier.
Mm-hmm. And then next up we have Serp. So Serp has been gaining popularity recently due to its ability to have a good matchup versus stuff like webs. And recently it's been used on screens. So what screens are two moves, Light Screen and Reflect, and both of them half damage from special and physical moves, respectively. And the reason why Superior is the go-to screen setter for most of these HO teams is that it can also threaten opponent teams due to its contrary ability. So what that does is it reverses stat boosts and drops. So when it clicks Leaf Storm, usually you'd have a severe drop on special attack, but Serp has a severe increase in special attack, so it can just set up screens and then sweep on its own with Leaf Storm. And the nasty thing about Serperior is that not only is it fast, not only can it snowball quickly, but it also has decent defenses. So this is a mon that won't die easily unless you have a choice banded Revalin or a yeah, probably just a choice banded Reval, maybe a sharp beak Talonflame or something. But yeah, that's they're not gonna stay in with Syrup on that. But it can live a surprising number of hits. Also has nice utility with knockoff. Glare, of course, which is the most annoying thing to deal with Syrup. It's one of the few mons that gets it. And with paralysis being overpowered in ORAS, and being able to additionally paralyze ground types makes Serperior a menace. It also has stuff like Leech Seed, and most importantly, HP Fire. HP Fire coupled with Contrary is the most disgusting thing I have seen in the tier, where Serperior can 1v1 mons that it should normally switch out against. So it can HP Rock Volcarona, it can HP Rock Tornadus, it can HP Rock Zapdos, it can HP Ice Dragonite, it can HP Ice Landorus, it can HP Ice Garchomp. It's absolutely disgusting. And because of this, the many things it can do to annoy the opponent, that is why it's an A+.
Yep, no argument for me. You really never know what set Superior will run, but it'll almost always have Leaf Storm and either Taunt or Glare.
Mm-hmm.
So, another very annoying Pokemon. And that brings us to Slowbro. So Slowbro, really good. It's so like funny how it's pretty simple. You know, nowadays you run Scald, you know, get the burn, you know, you get the stab. It's really the same type of attack bonus, so it hits harder. You get Ice Beam. That's typically run to like, you know, damage stuff like in the air. So like your Zapdos, your Landos, Garchomps, you know, things like that. Or Gliscor, actually. I think it was initially for a Gliscor, which is funny because Gliscor used to be here, I'd say, but no more. And then you have T-Wave, which we have an old video about why Thunderwave is. Actually, a couple of videos why Thunderwave is so good.
Yeah.
So it gets that, and it gets Recovery in two forms. In Slack Off, which is just basically recover, heal 50% of your HP, but also it gets Regenerator, one of the best abilities in the game. So when you switch out, you get 33% of your health back. So if you leave the field and you have 33% health, when you come back out, you got 66% roughly. So just switching out, you heal up. So Slowbro and other regenerated mounts like it. Though there aren't many who can do exactly what Slowbro does. But those mounts kind of help make the tier work, honestly. Have like, defensive answers and checks to other threats.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, Slowbro just like by itself invalidated some other former A+ mons. Like I mentioned, Gliscor, its Ice Beam and Scald combo prevents Gliscor from setting up on it, which he used to be able to do, which is stall you out of slack offs, but can't do that if you're running Ice Beam too. But also Keldeo, I'd argue, is no longer A+ tier because now Slowbro is more specially defensive, so that it can survive 2 Hydro Pumps and just slack them off. And yeah, there you go. Now that's not to say that Keldeo is completely walled. That's just a spec set. If they're running like a Calm Mind set with like a substitute or something,
Ooh, yeah.
then it might be a little harder. But the standard, the go-to standard for a long time was Choice Specs Keldeo. But because of this mon here, just slightly changing its set around, it kind of made it a lot worse. So it's a really good mon, and it pairs really well with the S plus mons, namely Clefable. So they can both kind of cover for each other's weaknesses, and they both got really pretty borderline busted abilities too. So both great.
True, true. Yeah, that's a great point you made about just like the tiniest change in spread just invalidated so many, a couple of important mons, which is kind of crazy. But
Yeah, it's so silly in retrospect how long like no one thought to like just give it a little more spadef to make it live those hydro pumps.
mhm. But yeah, Regen is a really broken ability, as you guys probably know. For those of you who may have been in SS or playing Sun and Moon, you're probably used to that with Toxapex and stuff. But here, I would say there's more variety in regen mons. So another example similar to Slowbro is Tornadus T. So Tornadus T does a combination of things that similar to Slowbro and Rotom Wash. So like Rotom Wash, it's a very dominant pivot in the tier. It has a really nice speed tier in 375. So that is outspeeding most of the threats aside from Mega Lopunny, Weavile, Mega Main, Alkazam, that stuff. So it covers most of the meta. And the nice thing about it is you can run Assault Vest. So it works almost like a special version of Slowbo where you can switch it into Draco Meteors and Hydro Pumps from Keldeo. And the nice thing about Tornadus compared to Slowbro is that you also have additional utility in knockoff, and you can pivot out with the U-turn on mons that would like to switch into Tornadus T, and that allows you momentum to switch into very powerful threats. So say you want to switch into your Heatran on Tornadus. Well, Heatran doesn't like to have its item lost, but it kind of has to switch in anyways. But yeah, Tornadus can just remove the item and then it can just U-turn out before Heatran does any damage, which is really nice. So most of the time, Tornadus can threaten a lot of stuff. At the very worst, it will remove your item and then yeet out. But there's also stuff like Hurricane Confusions that you also have to worry about. It also has decent coverage in Heat Wave and Smackdown, so your Ferrothorn will most likely not want to switch, stay in versus a Tornadus. And what's been picking up usage recently is Rocky Helmet plus Taunt. So what Taunt does is prevents you from using status moves. And basically, what Tornadus can do is it can chip you down with Hurricane and Heat Wave, and then taunt you, prevent you from healing up. And that is really nice because it kind of tenderizes your team, makes it weak, and allows another teammate to finish the job and sweep. So that's one of the many reasons why Tornadus is one of the, also similar to Rotom, it's one of the most dominant pivots in the tier.
Yeah. So, nothing else I gotta say there. You got it pretty good. So yeah, it is pretty much like a special Slowbro. How it's used. Though it lacks a T-Wave, it has pretty much every other form of utility. And some people even forego the Assault Vest in favor of running like the Rocky Helmet or Leftovers with Taunt, so they can run Taunt. Got a lot of good moves. And then finally, our last mon in A+ is Zapdos. So Zapdos, you know, it's been around a long time. If you're old like me, you grew up with like Zapdos being like one of the first Pokemon and like one of the first legendaries, and it's basically been like good the entire competitive, you know, scene. Like throughout the beginning, from the beginning, it's been a good Pokemon in the competitive, and that's due to its typing. Electric and Flying is pretty unique. Not many ones have that. It's not weak to many things. It's good against many things. Like it's only scared by like Ice and Rock, which you often see those as coverage moves, or in the form of Stealth Rocks. But you don't really see too many Ice or Rock types, besides like like Weavile and Tyranitar. You know, that's basically it for those types. and it gets access to Volt Switch, U-turn. If you're in Gen 4, you'll have that. But we're in ORAS, so you stick to Volt Switch. Discharge, Heat Wave, and you can't HP Ice, so you have like a nice electric, fire, ice coverage, which is basically hits almost everything. And you get Recovery and Roost. You have Defog, so this is also the best defogger in the tier, and one of the best defensive answers in general too. So things like Bisharp and Mega Pinsir, they're very, very nicely checked by Zapdos. Let's see what else. Oh,
Scissor.
so it has Pressure.
Oh, sorry.
Pressure. So Pressure sounds pretty boring on the surface, but it does have some utility. So if you're going 1v1 against a Stealth Rocker, you'll outstall them from like they run out of Stealth Rocks before you run out of Defogs. They might, if they run Toxic, and you have like a sub or something, they'll win that exchange. But on paper, if they don't have that stuff, you'll outstall them. And you got really good natural base stats. You got like 125 special attack, which is really solid. You got 100 base speed, also again really solid. And the bulk is also solid. But like I said, we mix with the speed tier, the recovery, the typing, all that adds up to some greater than its parts. And you have one of the best Pokemon in the tier, I'd say.
Yeah. I think you hit all the nails on the head. Zapdos' defensive typing is really nice. Static is a disgusting ability. And
oh yes, I forgot to mention that.
people have been running that with Excadrill. So the main thing with Zapdos in ORAS is that you can run static, but you can't run it with defog at the same time. So what people usually do is they pair Zapdos with Excadrill as the hazard remover, and then they drop defog on Zapdos for HPIs. And that is where what Sarah was mentioning about the fire, electric, ice coverage, and that's really annoying to switch into. And static itself is a nice deterrent for most of the physical attackers in the tier, like Mega Metagross, Mega Lopunny, that sort of stuff, and Tornadus too, trying to U-turn in on that.
Yeah, it's really, really punishing. Even if you don't run static, now that it's been seen more recently, people may think twice before U-turning. They may just hard switch out, and that may also end up being like the wrong mon they switch out into, and then they hard switch again, and then you both switch out. It creates like a lot of mind games, and could potentially give you a lot of momentum without you even having to do anything, because people will just be that overly cautious.
Yeah.
So it's really, really interesting.
So that's the A+ tier. Now I know you Manaphy fans are out there, whoever you are, you're probably mad that Manaphy is not here. Please calm down. It'll come eventually. Let's see though. I'll give you guys another moment. What do you guys think is gonna be an A? And let's see. Psych, Manaphy ain't here. First off, Alkazam Mega. So Alkazam has been gaining a lot of traction recently due to its really great speed tier and wall breaking capabilities. Unlike some other special wall breakers like Mega Charizard Y, it's not held back by its speed. And the nice thing about it is it has decent disruptive options, most notably Encore. So what Encore has been used is to lock setup sweepers into setup moves, and the reason why Alkazam has been gaining popularity recently is because the screens and HO trend we've been seeing picking up in usage. So what Alkazam can do, it can lock stuff like Manaphy into Tail Glow, it can lock stuff like Altaria into DD. And the nice thing about that is the opponent is forced to switch out, but when they do, Alkazam can basically get a huge hit in and most probably 2-hit KO your opponent's mons, because it normally would outspeed them anyways. It's checked by very few mons in the tier. I'd say the best check is probably Scarflanders,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, the combination of Psychic, Ghost, and Fighting coverage can hit a lot of things. I think it hits basically everything aside from like a few mons. But yeah, the scariest thing about Zam is that fourth slot is basically a freebie. You can run whatever you feel like. So if you're crazy, you can run Calm Mind or Protect or something like that. But this is why Alkazam we think is an A tier, just because that solid speed tier, solid wall breaking capability, and these tricky niche options that you can use to disrupt the opponent's setup.
Yeah, and it's using Encore.
Yeah.
Locked him in the move. Yeah. That was 175 base special attack. It's no joke. And like Anvil said, the coverage is basically perfect. It hits everything at least neutrally. I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the feature is a little more solid. What was it, like 150?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's one of the highest like in the game. Like non-scarf, and even some scarfers get outsped by it.
Yeah.
I think a scarf Heatran gets outsped, so it's interesting. And of course, a scarf T-Tar. Okay, now I'm gonna go to my favorite Mega, though I don't think the best, but my favorite one, Mega Altaria. So Mega Altaria is really interesting. So it's got unique Dragon and Fairy typing. It gets access to Dragon Dance. It has great all-around bulk. It's pretty bulky on both sides. It's got solid natural offenses of 110, but when you add the Pixelate ability, which turns its normal attacks into Fairy, you have a lot of options there. So I think that the standard one is probably like a Frustration or Return or Body Slam, which I'm not as into because I feel like I never get it. But also you could do some fun stuff, like if you really want to just do a ton of damage, you could do a Double Edge, or if you want to take advantage of your opponent, maybe like going into a Rotom on you, you can go for Facade, and that's just like a nuke.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a 140, I know, more than 140 with the Pixelate. Just a power move. And yeah, so you can run it more offensively. You can run it more defensively while still being offensive. You're like the King DDD set, they call it. It's like the bulky Dragon Dance set. You could run even special. Some people run like a Hyper Voice, Fire Blast, Roost. Oh, you guess Recovery, you can Roost. And so Heal Bell usually. So you run as like a special cleric kind of mon. Which I prefer the defensible versions myself because you can actually set up. The only thing, and honestly, this would probably bring an A+ tier, is it doesn't get defog yet until Generation 7.
Mm-hmm.
So if it got defog this generation, it would honestly be the best defogger. Like it would take that from Zapdos, in my opinion. And I think it'd be A+.
Mm-hmm.
But because it doesn't, it's A+. It's regular A. But still really good. Very strong Mega. Could easily mess up a team if you predict the wrong set, or you give it some time to set up. So yeah, but very threatening. Don't sleep on Mega Altaria.
True. Yeah, I think you covered most of the bases. I also love Altaria. Like, Saera is the reason why I started using Mega Altaria, because it can put in so much work. And it's one of the few megas that can fit on like every archetype in the tier. You can see it on stall, you can see it on bulky offense, and you can see it on hyper offense. So it is really nice in that sense, because if you're like Sarah, you're gonna put this on anything you set your eyes on. And I've seen Altaria put in work so many times. It's like one of those megas where like even if you get hacked, you're probably still fine, and you can probably still sweep the opponent team. So if you're like a beginner out there, maybe you could try Altaria, because oftentimes it can decimate the opponent, and they often don't have solid switch-ins into it.
Yeah, it's very flexible. It's honestly, in my opinion, the most flexible Mega in the tier.
Mm-hmm.
And my first team that I used that actually like had some success, meaning like I won more games than I lost, was Mega Altaria squad. So I think it's very beginner friendly. Like I said, there's a lot of options. You kind of just see what works for you or your team. Just kind of go from there. Also, it's really cute.
Yeah.
It's adorable. I don't have a picture of it here, but like it's a big cloud dragon thing. Looks more like a bird on side than a dragon though. It's like a I don't know, like a peacock kind of thing, or like a I
Oh,
don't know. It's really cute, guys.
yeah.
Look it up. You haven't seen it.
So moving on to a less cute dragon, we have Garchomp. Garchomp has some
He's
skin.
handsome. He's handsome.
Yeah, he's handsome, but he has a couple of skin problems. I heard he had some rough skin. So usually people take advantage of Garchomp's rough skin and give it a rocky helmet. They use it defensively to deal with physical attackers like Fake Out Lopunny, Fake Out Medicham, Mega Metagross, and physical U-turners like Jirachi, Landorus, and Scissor. And the reason why Tank Chomp is used is that one, that defensive typing is really solid. Dragon Ground, really cool. You resist you're immune to electric and you resist fire, which is nice. Its main role is to get Stealth Rocks up and then Dragon Tail over and over again, causing you to get chipped. And it also has some annoying options like Toxic and Rock Tomb for those flying types, which is really nice. And that's just defensive Garchomp. I think the most underrated sets of Garchomp right now are offensive in nature. I know Sarah and I have been using Scarf Garchomp lately, and I think Scarf Garchomp is the most underrated Garchomp set, just for the fact that usually people would run Scarf Rocks. So you click Rocks, they don't expect you to be offensive, and then you can just surprise them by revenge killing their Mega Metagross or their Thunderous later on. And it's also one of the few mons that have the Edgequake combination. So that's very for those of you who may not know, Edgequake is a combination of two moves, Earthquake and Stone Edge, and that's very hard to switch into. There's only one or two switch-ins in the tier, meaning like Breloom and stuff. But other than that, that combination is extremely difficult to switch into. And that in the combination of Outrage, Dragon Claw, that sort of stuff makes Garchomp a menace with a Scarf. And it's one of the few mons that can safely revenge kill stuff like Volcarona at +1, which I think gives it a solid niche as a Volcarona check that isn't weak to rocks and does not get burnt by using Aqua Jet. And the
Rock Slide?
yeah, with the rock slide, with the Garchomp, you can revenge kill Volcarona,
yeah.
Easily without fear of a burn. And then I think there's like a final set in my opinion too. It's been a nuisance to Sarah and I on the ladder sometimes, and that's Life Orb SD Chomp.
Oh yeah.
So that's the bane of every Clefable, where Garchomp just sets up an SD and then Okos you with the Earthquake. And that's also an annoying set. And I think it can put in a lot of work if paired right with the correct teammates. It can punch the holes through a lot of teams. And the speed tier, even though Garchomp's speed doesn't seem to be that high, 333 is still pretty solid. You hit everything up to like Thunderous Therian, which is really cool. And there's a lot of options you can run with Life Orb Chomp. Some people run some special moves like Fire Blast to hit stuff like Ferrothorn and other steel types. And some people run like mixed with Draco to destroy Landorus and Rotom Wash. And yeah, the main thing I'd say for Garchomp is that bulk. Like that bulk is insane. And the fact that it still has a solid offensive potential after that. So that's one of the reasons why Garchomp is A tier for us.
Yeah. The pseudo legendary stats are in all the right places.
Mm-hmm.
Good as mom. Okay, now we got Landorus Therian. So one of the, I'd say, I think when people think of ORAS, they think of Landorus. So it's one of like the emblematic mons or mascots, or I can't think of the right word, but it's very strongly associated with ORAS, and for good reason. So Landorus is very similar to Garchomp in that they're both ground types. They both have a lot of different sets that work well. defensive, scarf, even setup. Though you don't see setup as much on Landorus, but the defensive sets are really good, especially for Lando, because Lando it has the Intimidate ability. It's got the ground flying typing, so it's immune to electric and ground, which is really great because usually you want at least one of those each on your team. So I have one Mon with both, with U-turn, with Stealth Rocks, with Knockoff, and with base 145 attack. The thing's got so much going for it. So lots of roll compression, and yeah, honestly, it's gonna easily have been an A+ tier. I don't know, thinking about it, I'm not sure why it's not. But it's really good. Maybe even underrating it here because I might be underrating it. I guess because there's like some more threats nowadays, like a Volcanion, and we'll get to Volcanion in a bit. But sorry, yeah, Volcanion, yeah. Sorry, mix up my bolts. But yeah, it's just like when you think of a good Pokemon, I think Landorus will like always be good. And honestly, I'm saying it's like very emblematic of ORAS. I think even in the later tier, in the later generations, it gets even better somehow.
Oh
But
yeah, that
still really good here.
Mhm.
And I think if you're a beginner, it's a good mon to stick on your team or try to work with.
Yeah, yeah, true. I should probably put a disclaimer out here. Uh, I think Sarah and I probably agree. Scarf Landorus is the best Landorus set. Don't catch us using that defensive stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's like a natural scarfer.
Hmm.
The speed tier, it outspeeds pretty much everything it needs to, including Mega Alkazam, which you mentioned. It's got that U-turn, the Intimidate, so it's still kind of artificially bulky, even without much or any investment. So, and that's wrong with Earthquake, like you mentioned. So you can kind of late game sometimes with a late game cleanup with the Scarflanders.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good.
So next up is Lopunny Mega. So in an offensively oriented tier like ORAS, Lopunny Mega, I think in ORAS's history has always had like a high ranking. I haven't played ORAS that long, but I remember it was like S rank or something at one point. Um, and yeah, I'd say Lopunny is one of the best offense killers in the tier, um, primarily due to its double priority in fake out and quick attack, but it also has a very solid speed tier. It's a bit slower than Alkazam, so it hits like 405 speed, which I speed most of the tier, barring stuff like Alkazam and Sceptile and stuff. Um, and the nice thing about Lopunny is that with Scrappy, both of its stabs are unresisted. So you can high jump kick everything and you can return everything. So normal hits everything except rock and steel, right? And then fighting hits everything except fairy and psychic and stuff. So those two combinations, like it's basically its stabs are unresistible. So that's another perk about Lopunny Mega. And it also has a bunch of disruptive options similar to Alakazam too. Sometimes you see Encore Lopunny, which is also the bane of any Clefable,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also been used against hyper offense as well to lock stuff like Manaphy into Tail Glow, as we mentioned before, and as well as Altaria, and yeah, it's a very like straightforward mon too. Like you're most likely gonna click Fake Out and then click either return or high jump kick, and stuff will drop. Um, yeah, I think that's I can't think of anything else.
Another thing I'll say is it's very popular for some fans for other
Oh,
reasons, but
oh, yes.
we'll say that for a future video. But Yeah, no, it's a really solid mega. You know, the fake out, the scrappy, so you don't have to worry about uh, crashing with your high jump kicks into ghosts. You know, you hit everything, and the encore, and it has also a power punch if you want to be that guy.
Mhm.
Which I think we try to be that guy. You know,
Oh,
I don't
true.
think it's that great, but I think some people or some conditions, it makes it not just a wall breaker or annoying revenge killer, but it could even maybe even sweep. So that's more iffy, but it's a pretty good mon.
Mhm.
At least A tier. Yeah, A tier. Okay, now we got the other fighting Mega. So we got Mega Metacham. So Metacham trades Lopunny's speed for power. So the thing gets huge power, which doubles its attack. So it's 100 base attack, which looks pretty mediocre on the surface. It actually, if you fully invest it, make it 328, that doubles to 656. So 656 attack,
Mhm.
not being locked in with a choice item.
Yeah.
So that's pretty crazy. And you get the high jump kick still, and
Mhm.
it's even harder.
Yeah.
And you still get fake out, plus the coverage. So you get ice punch, thunder punch, or Zen headbutt with the high jump kick. You even opt for a bullet punch. It has a double priority with the fake out and bullet punch.
Hmm.
So if you thought like Lopunny was scary, Metachams are even more threatening. And sometimes if you predict or you get like a crit, you could just kind of break the things that would be checking you, like a Clefable or something. So I mean, this is like one of the most, I'd say, brainless mons in the tier, and I mean that
Yeah.
like with all due respect, because you really just click buttons. You click fake out, you click high jump kick.
Hmm.
You don't really have to deviate too much.
True.
Maybe if you want, you can predict and go for an ice punch on like a incoming Lando, but uh, that thing you just want to click high jump kick really
Yeah.
as much as you can,
And
and things will drop.
it's like so easy to support. The basis for Mega Medicham teams is you just have like a bunch of pivots along with Medicham. So you have like Scarflanders, Rotom, Tornadus, that
Tornadoes.
stuff, and you just want to bring Medicham in as much as possible and grab your kill.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to build around. Though I will say, in tournaments you may not see it as much because people don't want to risk the misses or the people running protect. But yeah, they're really good. And one more thing, it really doesn't take that much direct damage a lot of times because usually mons will be switching out, or you'll be smart enough to switch out after you revenge kill something. They bring in like a Slowbro, for instance.
Mhm.
But another underrated thing though is it only takes half damage from rocks. The fighting type means it's resistant to rocks, so it can come in a lot even on hazards. So you really gotta hit it usually to knock it out or status it or something, preferably with the burn to weaken it. Yeah, that's Mega Metacham.
And then next up we have my favorite Mega Metagross. So Metagross has been infamous for narrowly avoiding the ban hammer from ORAS OU. And I think that's for good reason. I think Metagross is a really solid mon, but it's not necessarily broken. There's a lot of things holding it back. And I think uh, A tier is a solid place for it, mostly because it still hits like a truck. So it has Tough Claws, which boosts its physical attacks, and it has a nice solid stab in Meteor Mash. It also has access to priority with Bullet Punch, and it also has um, coverage options like Ice Punch, Thunder Punch, Zen Headbutt, and it's also one of the fastest pursuit users aside from Weavile. And so usually people pair it with like Keldeo and stuff to trap the Lottie twins. Um, I think the reason it's held back from Ubers is that Steel, in my opinion, isn't a very good offensive typing. I think it's more better defensively, and I think Metagross deserves praise for that, specifically being able to tank unthinkable hits. Like you can tank Choice Scarf Landorus's EQ from full. It can tank a lot of things from full. It's pretty solid in that sense. And for those of you who may be watching from Gen 8, this is I think is most similar to like a Melmetal, where it's very good at tanking hits. And the nice thing about Metagross is that its speed tier is very solid. It gains a lot of speed upon Mega Evolution. It hits around 350. So
Minus
that's
350.
yeah. So that's about as fast as the Lottie twins, which is kind of insane. Um, and as I mentioned before, people have adapted to Metagross. There's so many switch-ins now that you can think of. Uh, just to name a
Mega Scissors.
few, yeah,
Yeah.
Mega Scissor, yep. Slowbro, Tangro, Tipowdon,
Oh, Tango is great.
Skarms. Yeah, the people have adapted to it, and Steel, as I mentioned before, it's not that great offensively. Like you hit Fairy,
Yeah, that's a good
and
thing.
yeah, that's about it.
But
Um,
that is pretty important though.
true, true.
Especially specifically Clef.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of character are with Clef in mind, which is really funny.
Hmm.
But yeah, Metagross, it's kind of like Garchomp in that it's got the pseudo legendary stats, but when you add a Mega on top of it, you get even more. It becomes like an Uber, just a straight up Uber,
Hmm.
not just pseudo. So it really like it got an all around good um, attack, bulk, and speed, and with all the coverage options and other shenanigans. Some people run like a home claws or rock polish set to
Hmm.
turn something into a sweeper. Very scary Mega,
Hmm.
indeed. All right, next up we got probably my second favorite Mega after Altaria, Scissor. So Scissor, I just love to give Scissor a Mega because Scissor, back in the day in the DPP, and also somewhat in Gen 5 and Black White, Scissor was really solid OG staple, but with all the speed creep, the power creep, things of that nature. I'm glad they gave it a Mega so it could catch up or still stay relevant. And Scissor Mega is basically the same as regular Scissor, except with more bulk. So it
Hmm.
still has Technician, still has the same typing, but now it has pretty much like Skarmory level physical defense,
Hmm.
but with even more special defense. And that's not even getting into like the offense. We
True.
get like base 150 attack now. So you run this thing bulky. You give it Sword Dance. After one Sword Dance, you can sweep a weakened team with like Bullet Punch, and that's not an uncommon occurrence. Plus, it has U-turn, and one of the few things that get stabbed on its U-turn. And you have other options like a Pursuit, Defog, but for me, the SD Bullet Punch U-turn Roost, that's great.
Hmm.
I think some people prefer a Bug Bite maybe over a U-turn. No, I think it's less common now than it used to be. But the thing is, U-turn is so good that even if you're like setting up a Sword Stance and you're U-turning and losing it, you don't really care because, like I said, you're really bulky. So you just come back in, roost, and then switch out or U-turn out, you know? Or you're more going to be like sweeping with Bullet Punch anyway than U-turn. And if Steel is a mediocre offensive type, Bug's even worse. So, like, you're not really going to miss it in most cases. So, yeah, I'd say Scissor. Oh, of course, what you thought said it's a great answer to Mega Metagross.
Hmm.
But in general, it's can take most physical hits really well. It can sweep, like we said. Can pivot. It can even defog and pursuit trap.
True.
So, yeah, I love this one. One
Yeah.
of my go-to megas.
And,
Sure.
and I think it's like I love Scissor for like the main reason like it pairs so well with the clef, like those two work really nice together, and the
Mhm.
fact that it's like a one of the best knock absorbers in my opinion in the tier.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So
uh,
knockoff is very prevalent. So being able to bring this on like like a Weavile,
mhm.
like immediately cutting it out with both stabs. Not many mons can say that.
Yeah. And the thing is, like you mentioned before, with the U-turn, although people may say, "Oh yeah, Scissor can get trapped by Magnezone." If you're running a U-turn Scissor, then that's really not an
Oh,
issue.
yeah, that's another reason to run it. In case they have a Magnezone, you just U-turn it.
But yeah, it's very similar to Ferrothorn defensively, where like it has recovery and it has really solid defensive typing. Um, the only reason I think we put it at A instead of A plus is that the metagame has shifted to like kind of more offensive, where people are using stuff like Manaphy and Volcarona more often. So I think it's not as good as an A plus mon without the right support. Like if you run Scissor with Talonflame, then just ignore what I said. But that defensive typing is really nice. It pairs well with so many different mons like Zapdos, Talonflame, as we
Yeah.
mentioned.
Yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah, only one weakness too, the bug steal. So only weak against fire.
Mhm.
And fire is so easily patched up.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, that's Scissor, Mega, and then uh, one of my favorites and one of Sarah's favorites, young Talonflame. So Talonflame,
Picture above.
we think it's the best priority user in the tier, and for good reason. Talonflame has Gale Wings, and this ain't some Gen 7 above Gale Wings. This is ORAS Gale Wings, so it's always active. So the nice thing about Talonflame is it destroys hyper offensive teams usually. Sharp Beak Talonflame can just cut through stuff like Thunderous anyways after rocks at +2. And it also has nice utility in Taunt, Will-O-Wisp, also has access to Bulk Up, and it has decent bulk. Usually, due to that priority in Brave Bird and acrobatics and stuff, people just invest fully into HP and put some in bulk too. So that's where Talonflame gets his bulk, and I think it's one of the best Bisharp switch-ins because most people don't run items on Talonflame, so it can easily eat Iron Head and knock off, and it can just wisp Bisharp and set up on it as well. And I think it's the quintessential Volcarona check, being able to switch into most variants of Volcarona except HP Rock and threatening a KO on it with uh, Acrobatics or Brave Bird. It's annoying to switch into. Most Talonflame switch-ins do not like eating a Will-O-Wisp except Heatran, but you can run a lot of support with it. I think the typing defensively is really solid. You compare it with stuff like Gastrodon, you compare it with Talonflame, or you compare it with what's it called? Superior, Starmie, Scissor, as we mentioned before. So it is really solid offensively and defensively. And the only reason I think it's not an A plus is because it takes a bit of work to sweep. You have to make sure rocks aren't up, and you have to like ensure that there's no mon that can take a hit possibly and threaten it back. So you want to remove stuff like Rotom and Zapdos and stuff like that, which can be a bit hard to do if you don't have your own rocks up. And sometimes that 50% damage from stealth rocks is annoying to Talonflame itself because oftentimes it wastes a turn roosting instead of possibly setting up, and that can be a little bit annoying for it. But other than that, really solid offensively and the best Brave Birder acrobatics user in the tier with its own niche of being an itemless mon that can still work.
Yeah. Honestly, besides the rock weakness, like it does everything else like phenomenally well.
Mhm.
Like the as you said, like the attacks, even with the low base power, sorry, like Talonflame's natural low attack power. You know, like acrobatics is like what 110, right? So that compared to like most party, that's like almost 3 times as high. You know, or if you have Raybird, it is 3 times as high. And a Sharpie, you know, it's basically like you're dropping physical Dracos. And then you add all the status moves that it gets and all the setup and all that. It's just such a great mon. It really is just the rocks that prevent it from being even better.
Mhm.
Like if boots existed in this gen, like this thing would just be broken, like absolutely broken, in my opinion.
All right, folks. Let's go talk about Tyranitar. Oh boy. So, unlike Some of the other mons on this list, Tyranitar is both a team player, but also kind of needs a team to be, built a certain way around him, which is not necessarily a bad thing because Tyranitar works really well. Actually, like he's the best partner of one of the S tier mons that we mentioned, Excadrill. So Excadrill really benefits from the sand because of its sand rush ability, which doubles its speed, making it, I think, it's the fastest mon in the tier without being choice locked into anything. It's got great utility, Tyranitar does, in Stealth Rock, Taunt, T Wave, Dragon Dance even has. And, this is a mon that's very much like Zapdos in that it's been around forever, well, almost forever, since Gen 2, and it's basically been an OU staple since that time. Though its role has changed somewhat over the years. And looking at the surface, you see the nice all-around great bulk, but you see that interesting rock and dark typing, which has a lot of weaknesses, but also a lot of strengths. And those strengths though give it like a very, have given it a very consistent presence and staying power throughout the years. For instance, Tyranitar is one of the best pursuit trappers. I think it's actually the strongest user of pursuit, with its 134 attack plus a stab, and plus the potential to run like a choice band. It's got it's actually a good choice scarfer. So despite being a base 61 speed Pokemon, that speed tier mixed with the bulk and its coverage and stab options create something of like a I have to call it like a no nonsense mon. So if an opponent has like some, maybe like a Manaphy or, well, maybe not a Manaphy, but like a Bisharp at +2, even +4, it can generally take the Sucker Punch and KO it back with like a superpower. So it's speed tier is good enough for a lot of things. We mentioned the pursuit trapping, and combine that with its sand rush. I'm sorry, not sand rush, sand stream ability, which conjures up the sandstorm. Which is why it's a great partner for Excadrill. Sorry, that was unclear before, but it summons the sandstorm, and the sandstorm also has a side bonus for Tyranitar. It gives a 1.5 multiplier to its special defense, so it makes it even bulkier. So even if it has like a weakness, let's say to water, chances are it could actually live like mini water attacks. Granted, they're not like coming from a Specs Keldeo. Even then, if it's got like a Pasho Berry or something, it could still live. So it's got great bulk, great utility. You need to take some care in the team building aspect, but you do that, it should put in work for you, or at least make the rest of the team function well.
Yeah, yeah. I think you hit most of the nails on the head. Tyranitar is like a very versatile mon that can do a lot of roles for a team, and like you said, it's been around for a long time. Its roles have changed, but it still puts in a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so moving on to the next one, we have Volcarona. So Volcarona, I'd say, is the quintessential example of a sweeper, and I think it's one of the most dangerous sweepers in a tier, primarily because Quiver Dance is a borderline broken move. So what Quiver Dance does, it allows Volcarona to boost its special attack, its speed, and its special defense. So it becomes even more specially bulky as it setting up, and that sometimes allows it to set up even more. And the scariest thing about Volcarona is that after one Quiver Dance, it outspeeds the entire tier unboosted, or avoiding like certain choice scarf mons. It can basically outspeed everything. Um, and then two, at +1, it can OHKO most things in the tier, which is also pretty scary. And it also has really nice coverage with Fire, Bug, and Grass. So you'd be surprised to learn it learns Giga Drain. So it even has recovery while it's trying to kill water types. So that is a scary thing to deal with for sure. It's often used to KO stuff like Keldeo and Rotom, Slowbro, Starmie, you name it. It takes them out, gains the HP back. So it can sometimes just Quiver Dance twice on certain water types and just take the HP back it lost. Um, and the scariest thing, in my opinion, about Volcarona is that you can also forego some coverage for hidden power. And what hidden power does is allows you to break through would-be checks to Volcarona. So stuff like Heatran, for example, have dropped off in usage primarily due to HP ground Volcarona, which can OHKO Heatran um, from +1. And I think an infamous example we saw this SPO was between John Filch and X-Ray, where John Filch was able to OHKO a Dragonite with HP Ice Volcarona. And that is one of the few, I would say, safer switch-ins to Volcarona, being able to resist fire, grass, and bug stab. But because Volcarona ran HP Ice, it was able to blow through that. And that's an infamous example of Volcarona pushing through would-be checks. And you would think, based on what I've explained, why Volcarona is not an S tier, A plus tier. Well, the primary reason is stealth rocks. So it's 4 times weak to stealth rocks, and unlike Talonflame, it's not wise to run Roost on Volcarona. It's better to run coverage options like Giga Drain, like I said. And that's one of the few things holding Volk back. And also, the other thing is its low physical defense. So because of that, it's often checked by stuff like Talonflame that we mentioned before, as well as other strong physical priority users like Bisharp, Extreme Speed, Dragonite, and Aquajet users like Azumarill and Crawdon. And the sad thing about this for the opponent is even if they try to um, jet you or sucker punch you, they still risk getting burnt, and that's also unfortunate because oftentimes Volcarona's teammates can capitalize on that even if it goes down. Um, but yeah, that's one of the reasons why Volcarona isn't higher up. It's just primarily due to that rock weakness, and if your opponent can pressure you well, then sometimes Volcarona becomes dead weight.
I will say though that flame body though, even if it does become just sack fodder, it could still potentially burn something, and it could be like a win con, perhaps maybe like a SD Bisharp that you could be leaning on for your end game that you have to bring in prematurely, so you don't lose to Volcarona, and you get burned, and then suddenly your Bisharp can't check or can't sweep, and then you end up losing anyway. And you mentioned the Giga Drain. It also gets a Roost, and it's got a pretty good natural bulk. 85 HP, I believe 105 SPDF. So, and that's before the Quiver Dance. So even with like its typing not being like super amazing defensively, it actually does resist like a number of things, like Fairy, fighting. Something else I'm missing. Oh, bug. Car resisting bug is actually not too bad. And grass. So it's got some like defensive, things going for it, making it scary. Yeah, so it's a really dangerous mon. Something if you're a beginner or you're just trying to get used to the tier, make sure you have this mon in mind when you're building, and really make sure you can do something to it if you come across it, because it's a very easy thing to come in and sweep you otherwise. And we've all been there. I think you have to have been swept by Volcarona at some point in your Pokemon career.
Yeah.
So you're among friends. And lastly, Weavile, one of my favorite Pokemon in general, like competitively and just personally. So Weavile has so many interesting things about it. So namely, it's an ice type that's actually good, and not only that, it's a fast ice type. Fast mon in general, not just for ice types, just like really fast, like 125 base speed, really good. It's got an amazing stab combination of dark and ice, which it hits most things. I think that one of the few things it doesn't hit is Keldeo super effectively, and even that you can actually if you get enough Ice Cold Crash flinches, you could beat it. I've been on the losing end of that a few times to know. And yeah, honestly, the flinch chance with Ice Cold Crash is so annoying, but it can win or lose games. depending on whose side you're on. But more like you know, the main things that are going for it. It's got the stab knockoff. So we mentioned in our top 10 video, our top 10 moves in ORAS knockoff. We both agree. Top 5 move. I think even like top 3. I think we both said in the format. It's just so good being able to remove an opposing item while also being a 97.5 base power move. And then you combine that with the stab from Weavile, the fact it often runs a choice band. Suddenly, you know, that's a really strong knockoff you got there. And that's not even talking about its ice shard. You know, it's a priority ice move. Could actually like clean up teams late game. You know, I've been on both the receiving and dishing out end of that, so it can be really nice. And also just really good for revenge killing. And also for revenge killing, you have Pursuit, which, you know, it's not quite as strong as Tyranitar, you know, with that base 120 compared to 134, but the speed here, and, you know, with the choice bands and the stab, you know, it's really good Pursuit Trap user, or Pursuit Trap mon. And yeah, so I would say that the choice band set, pretty straightforward. You got your stabs, knockoff, Ice Crash, Ice Shard, and Pursuit. Really all you need. But if you want, you could even go for a SD setup set, which is also quite scary in its own right. So you probably just drop the Pursuit there. Yeah, you just drop the Pursuit. And yeah, we've all a super scary mon. Another thing you got to make sure that you have, you know, have in mind when you're building your team.
And it's a speed tier is really solid. I think it hits like 383.
Yep, you got it. 383. Yep, it's 1 point slower than Talonflame.
Yeah, that's right. So it outspeeds most of the meta.
Mm-hmm.
Barring, like Sarah said, Talonflame, and select few megas like Alkazam and and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Other than that, like because it's faster than most of the tier, most likely you will be flinching stuff with the crashes, and most things will want to switch out versus you,
Mm-hmm.
regardless, because of that nice stab combination.
Yep.
But I think Sarah hit most of the dots.
Oh, I think there's one thing I forgot to mention.
Oh, okay.
Do not run Life Orb.
Oh, yes.
So Life Orb used to be the standard set many years ago, until, well, I remember I was running it for a while, and I stopped actually running Weavile because I wasn't really getting anything done besides hurting myself. Because you come on rocks, you take a quarter of your health, and you go for a knockoff or like an Ice Crash on like, you know, a resist, and suddenly you're down over a third of your health without accomplishing anything. So Choice Band is stronger. You don't lose the HP with every move, and like honestly, like, you know, like staying locked into knockoff really isn't the worst thing if you're a Weavile. You know, there's not many ones want to take that, or they don't want to risk the Ice Crash or whatever. So yeah, I'd stay away from Life Orb in general in most cases. And it's funny. I remember Choice Band wasn't even a thing until well, I'm not saying like I made Choice Band a thing, but I didn't really see it much. But then, you know, I gave it a try. I'm like, oh wow, this is way better. And then I started seeing increase in Choice Bands, decrease in Life Orbs. I'm just saying.
So it's really solid mon, and similar to Volcarona, it's not specifically in S tier or A plus tier just because of that rock weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also susceptible to a lot of strong priority.
Yeah.
Like, bullet point scissor.
Oh yeah.
Metagross, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty frail. Yeah, it's pretty frail, but in spite of that frailness, it's also kind of got like that Mega Mana Champ thing where it feels like it takes forever for it to die, despite being frail, because it scares out all the mons that it comes in on, so that they don't stay in to damage it. Although it is rock weak, so it does have that not going for it. But yeah, guys, I think that's That's everything up to A tier for us. So if you know, you like our picks, you dislike our picks, you think we missed something, feel free to comment below in the Chimecho box. Leave a licky tongue like, licky like. I forget which one it is. And rank the bronze song if you haven't, so you can be alerted for our next video, where we'll be going from the A- tier, maybe to a B- or something, or B. I don't know. We'll see how we're feeling that day. And lately we've been doing daily uploads, so I got that, or roughly daily uploads. So you got that to look forward to. And yeah, that's about it. Anvil, anything else?
Yeah, that's all good from me. I do want to say sorry to the Manaphy folks out there. It's coming soon.
Yeah.
You guys will have to be.
You keep it together. Keep it together. All right. Keep it in your pants. All right. All right, guys. That's about it.